Clint Eastwood and Kevin Costner's underrated 32-year-old crime movie is a heartbreaking masterpiece. Shortly after his breakout role as Sergio Leone's Western antihero, The Man with No Name, Clint Eastwood proved himself a Hollywood legend as he began taking on work directing his own films. Beginning with his 1971 thriller play Misty for Me, the star slowly emerged as one of the best actors and directors of both the Western and crime genres. In 1993, he teamed up with Kevin Costner to make perhaps the most underrated film in both men's careers. The crime genre has proven incredibly versatile throughout Hollywood history, being used as a vehicle to explore everything from family tragedy to comedy mystery. In the hands of Clint Eastwood, the genre has seen some of its greatest stories, from the action-packed Dirty Harry series to poignant crime dramas like Gran Torino. In 1993, the legendary actor-director teamed up with stars like Kevin Costner, Laura Dern, and Bruce McGill to bring audiences a heartbreaking fugitive road trip story. In the 3 decades since its release, the film has become surprisingly obscure, despite being one of its decade's best and most emotional crime stories. Clint Eastwood is an underrated drama director. Although best known for his work on Western and action films, Clint Eastwood is actually more versatile than people often give him credit for, both on screen and in the director's chair. This versatility began in the 60s, when he worked on everything from war movies like Where Eagles Dare to his later foray into comedy in the role of Philo Beddoe. As he took the reins of his career by becoming a prominent director, he found new respect from people who might not have been fans of his shoot-'em-up spaghetti westerns. For modern fans, he's best known for directing gritty dramas like Unforgiven, Gran Torino, and $1 Million Baby. Eastwood's 1990s career was something of a mixed bag, where people unanimously recognize his talent in films like Unforgiven and Absolute Power. The likes of White Hunter, Blackheart, and The Rookie have been somewhat forgotten. Chief among his forgotten 90s movies is 1993's A Perfect World, which saw the director team up with 90s icon Kevin Costner. Fresh from success in films like The Untouchables, The Bodyguard, and JFK, Costner was one of the hottest stars of the decade. Despite being a great story, this collaboration with Eastwood would actually begin the unfortunate downward trend of the star's box office power. A Perfect World, explained. Said in 1963, A Perfect World begins when 2 criminals, Butch Haynes and Terry Pugh, escape from prison in Huntsville, Texas. While fleeing, they break into the Perry home, where they abduct a young boy, Phil, from his mother. As their journey begins, Butch becomes weary of his unstable passenger, eventually killing him when he catches him attacking Phil. Despite his act of violence, Butch assumes the role of an older brother and father figure to Phil, even charming him over to stay with him on his journey. When he learns of Phil's Jehovah's Witness upbringing and all the restrictions it entails, Haynes sets out to give his passenger a fun childhood adventure. At the same time, a veteran police chief, Red Garnett, leads the manhunt for the fugitive. Using a trailer as a base of operations, Red works with a psychologist, Sally Gerber, to try and profile Haynes in a bid to understand where he's heading. As they work together, Garnett reveals that he has a history with a fugitive, having arrested him for stealing a car as a teenager while living with his abusive father. In a misguided attempt to set him straight, Red had the judge throw the book at the teenage Haynes, setting him on the road to crime. After a run-in with the criminal, Red and Sally begin to understand the man's motivations, but remain oblivious to his harmless nature towards Phil. As Butch continues to drive Phil, they're landed in one violent situation after another, with the criminal threatening virtually everyone who recognizes or frustrates him. When the pair are taken in by a farmer, Mac, who lives with his wife and their grandson, things escalate as Butch is driven to rage by the sight of Mac abusing the boy. Tying them up and preparing to murder Mac, he's shot by Phil, who flees into a nearby field just as the authorities show up. Apologetic and repentant, a wounded Haynes rests beneath a tree as the police try and negotiate for Phil's release. With a sniper trained on Butch, Garnett approaches, seeing Phil walking hand in hand with his surrogate father. However, before he can de-escalate, the sniper fatally shoots Haynes, leading to an enraged Red hitting him after the heartbreaking death of the man. Before the credits begin to roll, the audience sees the dying face of Haynes, with Phil finally reunited with his family. The film examines childhood trauma, masculinity, and friendship. The character of Butch Haynes stands out as the most interesting part of A Perfect World, namely the juxtaposition between his high intelligence and almost childlike outlook. While he does prove himself a capable man aware of the brutality of the world around him, Butch's actions and motivations seem juvenile from start to finish. Whether it's his insistence on taking Phil trick or treating, or his reaction to Mac's abuse of Cleveland, Costner's antagonist is a man incapable of moving on from his own abusive past. He sees both the world and his friendship with Phil through the eyes of an abused teenager, so much so that he reveals his plan all along was to drive up to Alaska in search of his father, thanks to a postcard he's held onto for years. As Red Garnett thinks back on how he treated Butch, ensuring he received a harsher sentence, the story offers a message on the criminal justice system. In trying to toughen up Butch to get him to go straight, Red set him on an inevitable path towards violence, robbing him of a second chance and leaving him knowing nothing but a life of crime. Here, the story delivers some biting social commentary on the treatment of first-time criminals, particularly those who are ultimately victims of circumstance. Due to his life in and out of prison, Butch can never be a truly productive member of society, and his mindset is perpetually that of the teenager Red arrested decades prior. It's this mentality that, for the most part, makes Butch so empathetic towards Phil and helps the pair get along. Costner and Eastwood working together was a perfect team. Just as Clint Eastwood took over from John Wayne as his generation's face of the Western genre, so too did Kevin Costner emerge as the new face of the genre beginning in the 80s. Considering both stars' similar association with American masculinity, the Western genre, and stoic heroism, the chances of them working together became inevitable. When their paths did finally cross for A Perfect World, it proved a no-brainer, and the film is among the strongest in both men's careers. Serving as perhaps Costner's best performance, as well as one of Eastwood's best-directed films, it refuses to be a cliché, instead standing out as a genuinely unique crime drama. Much as Eastwood transitioned to directing his own movies, Costner also decided to take control of projects he starred in afterward, from Dances with Wolves and Open Range to Horizon. Considering the similar trajectory and genres the pair explored, a collaboration made perfect sense. If anything, the fact that the two never worked together since makes for one of the more disappointing realities of modern Hollywood. With both stars associated with a very similar brand of hero, likely they didn't want to step on each other's toes. In A Perfect World, audiences have proof of just how well the two men can work together, and it would have been even better to see them collaborate on a Western. A Perfect World is a heartbreaking adventure. As good a film as it was, A Perfect World was a box office disappointment, with its own style failing to connect with mainstream audiences. Regardless of its success, the emotional story has few equals within its decade and genre, building up the father-slash-son relationship between Butch and Phil only to devastate its audience. The story doesn't pretend to be as wholesome as a classic road trip movie, nor is it as ultra-violent as its 90s thriller peers. Instead, it tries to inject some realism and emotion into its genre, avoiding all the classic tropes most filmmakers would fall into. Through its 1963 setting, A Perfect World adopts a unique amount of innocence for a story that simply wouldn't work as well if it had been set in any decade since. Understandably, as the 90s have been defined by a wave of grim and gritty crime stories like Pulp Fiction and The Silence of the Lambs, the bittersweet tone of this 93 hidden gem was lost on audiences. As Eastwood himself observed, audience expectations of the story didn't meet what the film was, and it didn't fit neatly into any one genre. Neither a classic road trip story nor a traditional crime thriller, A Perfect World is one of the true forgotten masterpieces of the 1990s and is a testament to the versatility of Clint Eastwood and Kevin Costner.